You're locked into the summer series with your man Louie T here on the Louie T Network. As the temperatures get hot outside, so does the content here on the Louie T Network. So stay cool. Your man Louie T is talking to some of the best in the business, talking National Football League. Enjoy the summer series. All right, so we're back with the summer series, our inaugural episode of season 2 of the summer series. And I got a fantastic guest with me today, a guy that I tell you guys all the time, I'm a champion lurker. So I've been following this guy for over a decade. I'm gonna check his memory and see how far back he goes in his Rolodex. But this is a guy that has changed the game. And if you're not following him on X, shame on you. If you're not checking out his content, you're missing out. This is a guy that is the founder of Black Sports Online Entertainment. He is the headline king himself in the flesh, Robert Latau. Thank you for joining me here on the summer series, man. How are you doing today?
Oh, man, I'm doing great. I appreciate you having me on. Like we talked about kind of behind the scenes, us brothers got to stick together. It's a tough, tough business out here, tough world out here for us. And, I love the fact that, you're promoting, other brothers like yourself, other sisters like yourself, and really trying to make sure that our voices are heard in this ocean of hot takes and ocean of political climates and things of that nature. It's very important that we have voices like you out there.
Hey man, I appreciate that so much. Before I got a bone to pick with you. Before we get to that though, the first time I caught wind of your brand and your content, do you remember the name Kerry Rhodes? Does that ring a bell?
Oh yeah. I forgot what his assistant was, but yeah, I remember Kerry Rhodes on the boat.
Yes. So Kerry Rhodes played for the Arizona Cardinals at the end of his career, because this had to be around 2013, 14, towards the end of his career, because I just gotten started with this YouTube channel and my brand in 2012. So it's right around when I first started. And he had been messing around with this dude, and it was out there, but I'm like, nobody sees this? Is nobody seeing this? And it was you who was like, had it like front and center, like, hey, look, this is what's going on here. And he was denying it. Then he wasn't denying it. Then he was just out with it. It was crazy. And from that point forward, I've been following your content, man. You do a great job covering everything under the sun. But I do got a beef with you, though, because I feel like I'm putting the blame on you for my Duke Blue Devils collapse in the Final Four. You put the hex on them with that video you put out right before that game. He was like, at all costs, the Blue Devils cannot win. And I've never seen a collapse from my Duke Blue Devils quite like that one. So let me ask you this. I know you're an Ohio State Buckeyes fan. Which one did you take more satisfaction in? Watching Duke choke the way that they did, or your Ohio State Buckeyes winning the Natty in 2024?
Oh, definitely my Natty. I was there, and considering the way the season went, the roller coaster that it was, to kind of see them come together and put that run together. And since I went to school there, I've never missed one of their national championships. I was there. I was just getting out of school when they beat Miami. I was there in 2014 with the ride for them when they beat Alabama, and then Oregon, and then I was able to go to this one, and it's really interesting because it spans like pretty much the entire adulthood of my life. I can kind of see where I was at as an individual through Ohio State's, championships. Duke, it's a little bit of a joke to me. Of course. Obviously, the kids that go there now are not the same as the Christian Laytoners and the Bobby Hurleys, the Grant Hills, the Jay Williams of my, early time when I was just in the fandom and not in the media. But yeah, I mean, I think some teams, I think everybody has that team that is like all call, just not them.
Anybody
like,
but them.
Like I would handle I handled a Michigan national championship. I would say I would handle that better than if Duke would have won the national championship. And
So how does that
yeah.
work? Because you were a Michigan fan with the Fab Five, correct?
Correct. When I was, so I'm not initially from Ohio, which is what a lot of people think.
Okay.
The story is I'm from St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay.
The way I ended up in Ohio was that my father at the time had taken a job in Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
And so at that time, I wanted to kind of leave. I had never been out of the state of Missouri. I just wanted to be somewhere else. And the fact that I was able to get in-state tuition, and I wanted to go to a big university. So I had plans. I was thinking about going to Michigan, Miami. I just wanted to go somewhere different. And I just ended up at Ohio State. But at that time, when I got to Ohio State, it was in the Fab Five, era
right.
Of where I think, they had just all got drafted. I think, he was at Golden State and Jalen Rose had got drafted. So I was not really immersed in the tradition when I got there.
Gotcha.
But once you're there and you're in it and you experience it, you get immersed, in it. And by the time that I left, it was, nothing Michigan was coming across, my screen, or no jerseys or anything like that.
Okay, so they got you straight quick in those 4 years.
I used to be like a Desmond Howard fan or Elvis Gerbach. I used to like, Michigan football.
Right.
And I never was. It was just one. It was just like, to me, it would, like, think about it if you were watching Alabama and Auburn, but you lived in North Carolina. It's like it's a rivalry, but it really had nothing to do with you. So you can be on both sides. That's how I kind of was. I liked Ohio State players like Chris Carter and all of those guys. But I also like Michigan guys as well, because a lot of them represented the culture at the time. But by the time that I had left, I was Ohio State true. The reason I'm rocking the St. John's jersey is my daughter actually goes to St. John's. Okay. So I got another team that I have to root for.
Yeah. And they had a resurgence last year with Rick Pitino. So
she's not really a sports fan, but she kind of got into it. So that made me kind of happy.
Yeah. Look, he turned that whole program around. So now they're back in the mainstream consciousness. But before we get to some of the topics that I want to get to today, I want to first talk about your background, how you started out, and what made you want to get in the lane in the industry that you ultimately did.
Yeah, it was by accident. I mean, it wasn't the people. I think it's hard sometimes for young people for me to kind of explain it to them, because back when I was in high school in the late 90s and in college in the late 90s, early 2000s, media was a lot different. You had the way that you got into media was very traditional. You worked for a newspaper, you worked for the local radio station, or if you were lucky, you got to work for ESPN, which was really the only, I would say mainstream national sports outlet like that. So when I had always had an interest in sports, like I think most kids, did, but I always had an interest in the media side of sports, even when I was a kid. And when I was in high school, I used to do the homeroom highlights of like all of our teams, at the high school. So I wanted to be Stuart Scott. I wanted to be, Keith Olbermann, Dan Patrick. Those were guys, I had researched, Ali and all of these guys that were with the media, and I wanted to do that if that's what I was going to school, for. But I went through college, and I will say that the college experience from a human perspective gave me a lot of perspective on life and how to be a man and growing up and all that stuff. I may not take advantage of the opportunities in the industry that I should have while I was at school. So when I left school, I thought my degree would just get me into whatever I needed to get into. I learned very quickly once you leave school, it's practical experience is something that you need more than anything, else, which I felt like I had the talent, but I didn't have the practical experience. But at that time is when the internet and everything was kind of coming together. I had actually a little bit of a rap career at that time, but I had learned to, at that time while I was in school, I learned to create websites. I was actually building people's websites on the side, like for money. And
Like
I had
coding and all that too?
Yeah. I mean, this is
It's a lot different back then than it is now, right?
This is like coding, HTML,
Absolutely, like black
Yahoo GeoCities type of stuff. So I would build websites for other musicians or whatever they wanted to do. I would build a website for them. And I had built a website for myself for my rap music and stuff, so people could listen to my music through like MP3s for people that don't know back in the day. So while I was out here kind of floating around, I was like, well, I watched a playoff game, Minnesota Vikings and Green Bay Packers. This is back when Randy Moss was on the Vikings, and Joe Buck.
Is that the one where he mooned them?
He fake mooned them.
Yeah, right.
Joe Buck lost his mind. I mean, he called him everything under the sun except the N word. Yeah. And I was talking to some friends, and I'm like, he didn't understand. How can he understand Randy Moss? Like, I felt like our voices were so underrepresented that I wanted to start something to where I could counteract that. And that's where the website started. But it just started as a way for me to have like kind of a working resume as I tried to get myself into a regular job in the industry. Right. It just happened right time, right place, right era, whatever it may be, is that the internet started to kind of take the place of what you considered your traditional media was. So by the time it got to the point where maybe I could have worked for a newspaper or I could have worked for a radio station, the site itself had given me some legitimacy within the industry. And I had a few individuals that believed in me. I had a couple of connections that were allowing me to cover events through the website. And at that point, I was independent. And so I was like, I don't necessarily need another outlet. I am the outlet. Right. And then with the advent of social media and having an ability to get my words and my stories and my voice out to now not just local people, but a whole national people within a click, it just took off, from there. So, like the early 2010s, that decade of the growth of social media, the growth of internet, the growth of, I would say, the smartphones, high-speed internet, just the way I was just right there in the middle of it while it was happening, and just took full advantage of it at the time.
That's crazy. Your story sort of parallels with mine because my channel, it wasn't an accident, but it was like a resume, so to speak, right? Like I created it to kind of document what it was I was doing because my ultimate goal, my end game was to be on NFL Network. The network had just started not too long ago, and they really didn't have a lot of programming when I first started this channel. And so I had a whole show that I had developed. I had segments. I was going to pitch it to them. And as I got deeper into doing what I was doing, I realized that this platform was becoming the new medium, right? This was becoming the new, like you said, traditional way of people consuming information. And I'm like, why would I want to go to where people are starting to go away from? And I'm already where people are flocking towards.
Right.
So it makes a lot of sense. And, our stories kind of parallel in that sense. So we're going to be all over the place because you're so multifaceted. How many phones do you have? Do you have like 6 phones?
No, I only have one phone.
Really?
I couldn't have. I'm married. You can't be walking around with 6 phones.
So,
Are you crazy?
How do you keep up with everything? Because you're like, you don't miss anything. You're all over the place. You got all this information coming in at once. How do you do it?
Yeah, it's. I think it's one of my, I guess, talents, so to speak, is that it just comes. It always came naturally, to me. A lot of people ask me, how do you come up with this? Or how do you stay with that? Why do you say this? Oh, this is so fun. Like, I don't have a lot of talent. Like in the regard, like if you ask me to change a tire, it might take an hour. When I have to do errands around, I like when you get something, like I have a couple of kids and how you got to build something and how I'd say, oh, this should take 30 minutes to build, right? That's going to take me 2 hours. Yeah. But when it comes to disseminating information, catching stuff quickly, figuring out how to, get it to an audience, how to make that audience react to it, how to be entertaining, with it, how to communicate with people. That's something that has always it came kind of easy, for me, which kind of fit right into kind of the micro information society that we ended up becoming, because I was able to take things that 100 people were talking about, but put it in a way, in a very few amount of words that would make people interested in what I had to say about it. And I think after a while, you just get into a rhythm of what it was. I actually had to kind of turn it down a little bit, because there was times early in my career, it was 8 a.m. to 2 a.m. Because something is always happening. I didn't want to miss anything.
Right.
I barely slept. I was always up. I was catching everything in real time. If somebody broke it, I wanted to break it first. And you kind of had to do that to stay ahead of the mainstream media, because we're still not ESPN. But if I can catch it 30 minutes early, if I can get it out there 30 minutes earlier, that gives me a head start on before it gets culture vultured by other places.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And you feel that, I know at least I did early on when I started, like I felt like I had to be first, right? And especially in what I do, everything is so time sensitive. And so you felt the need to be first. And as I've gotten into it longer, it's just like, hey, I just want to make sure I have everything, all my ducks lined up, and everything is the way I want it to be. But when you're first getting started, you're kind of chasing not necessarily clout, but you're chasing eyeballs, right?
Yeah.
And if you're first with something, which once you got them, if you feel confident in your content, you feel like once I got you here, you're not going to want to leave.
Right.
But you got to get them there first.
Get them there first. Yeah.
And being first gets people to you, and that's, so I totally understand that. So we're going to be hopping all around, because you are so multifaceted. I want to start first in the WNBA, because I'm always fascinated when race plays into situations, right? So I want to ask you, is the Caitlin Clark Angel Reese angle good for the WNBA?
No, it's terrible. It's I actually in retro, I wish they just never crossed each other's paths. I'll be honest with you. I for both of them. Because I think individually they were still going to be who they were going to be, maybe to a lesser extent, but they were still going to be, you are who you are.
Right.
Caitlin Clark was going to be Caitlin Clark. I mean, that was nothing that was stopping that train. And the reason I say that confidently, because I saw when the train started. And that's what a lot of people don't really understand, is that they got on the train late, or maybe they got on the train once Angel Reese came into the picture. But the train itself had started way before that. And she was going to be what she was going to be. And what she was going to be perfect for the WNBA until it got hijacked. The train was moving smooth. It was going the way it was supposed to go. And I thought it was going to be great for the WNBA. And then it got hijacked. And I don't blame Angel Reese per se for the hijacking, in the sense that if you saw Angel Reese's train, she's always been like this. And they've known each other since high school. And so it's not like they just met like in the national championship game. But Angel Reese has always been like this. So her train and Caitlin Clark's train was parallel for a long time. And then they crossed. And they crossed in what I would say the most naturally sports way a train can cross. In a championship game, one guy, one girl, if these were two dudes, this would have been a non-story.
Right.
And, if this was Halliburton and SGA at the end of the finals, it would be not a big deal. But just because people weren't really used to this type of audience, and it was a political year, it was a Trump year, it got hijacked. And once it got hijacked, it's awful for everybody. Caitlin Clark just wants the ball. That's her thing. She's crazy. I don't know if you, like I said, the train, I've seen the train. She's Kobe. Like, she's like not quite on the court. When it comes to the court, she's not, it's the laser focus, the talking to yelling at the coaches, the refs, always been like that. Angel Reese has always been the grinder, the rebounder, but the feminine, I want to try, the diva. That stuff has always been there. And both of it is perfectly fine. But once it's hijacked by a certain group of individuals and a certain group of media people that don't really know how to handle certain like this, it took what should have been a slam dunk for the WNBA. I mean, this is a layup. You have the most popular star you've ever had coming into the league. And on the flip side of that, you have this other one that's not as popular as she is, but brings a totally different audience. So you got two audiences that should be coming together, but all they do is fight all the time. And it frustrated me to the point where I had to just stop. And I've almost never said this about any story, but I just stopped talking about it.
Yeah.
Because I was getting frustrated because just the people that were taking over the story just had no idea what they were talking about. And you know, they had the thing in the first game. And as soon as I saw it, my head just went.
Yeah.
Because
I saw your video.
That's a foul in 100 of 100 NBA games. Hell, it's a foul in 100 WNBA games. They always a clotheslining each other and all the time. If anybody ever watches a WNBA game that doesn't include Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, it's like hockey out there sometimes. But nobody ever reacts that way. And I knew the reaction was not going to be, oh, Caitlin Clark had a triple-double, or Angel Reese had another rebound, or how, you know, their teams are going to be. It was going to be something else. And even though I feel kind of partly responsible for the way media is right now, it still makes me sad the way it actually is.
And so extending that conversation to Bobby Three Sticks, what was your reaction to him talking about the play itself and the reaction that he ended up getting after the comments he made? And I'm talking about Robert Griffin III.
Yeah, you know, that also made me upset. You know why? Because in the grand scheme of things, Ryan Clark and RG3 are still brothers, right? Now, I don't know if you're going to call cornball brother, whatever, but they're still black guys.
Shout out to Rob Park.
Yeah, you know, and when black guys, when I had to learn this, and I'm not high horsing because I used to do this, and in retrospect, I realized how stupid it was. We should not be the main, we should not be somebody else's entertainment, especially them, if you know what I'm talking about. And when we talk about a basketball game, and then we start, now all of a sudden it switches to people's wives and kids and baby mamas. And this is media. That just never happened before. And I was like, I'm just, no. I'm like, don't. Like, I know what RG3 was doing. I mean, I understand engagement baiting. He says things, he does things, he knows what he does when he's putting the milk and all. It's a brand decision, right? And I can understand how people can get upset about that. Now I understand why Ryan Clark could get upset, you know, about that. But sometimes it's like, just the best thing is just to ignore these people. You know what I'm saying? Like, just don't take the bait. Because when I saw Ryan Clark having to put his older daughter, I was like, how did we get here? Right. Like, why are you having to why do you have to talk about your wife? Like, we shouldn't. There has to be some lines that have to be engaged. Because I remember early in my career when I was just kind of talking reckless and stuff. And somebody brought up, you know, my daughter. And at that point, I'm like, you know something, there's lines that people online are going to cross. And you can't just reach out and get them because you don't know who they are or what they is, right? You know, there are still times, even though I've toned it down 100 times, that people will still think the way to try to get to me is through my wife, who's online from time to time. And it can be something as me simply as saying, you know, Russell Westbrook turns the ball over too over.
Yeah.
But it could be an account that's like, I love Russell Westbrook, that says, oh, go to my wife and say, oh, yeah, I saw your husband cheating. You know, it's just, it's very difficult to try to keep things just on the court. And I think what's happened is with our media and the fact that now there's so much engagement baiting, there's so much trying to get the likes, trying to get the clicks, trying to get Elon's $20, trying to get Facebook's $100, that people are just saying the wildest things, and families and kids and wives and girlfriends are all getting involved. And it's, to me, it's really sad. And I think that it's just a product of, like I said, I just wish Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese had never crossed paths the way that they did, because how do we get from a basketball play to you talking about somebody's wife, you bringing up your wife, you having to bring up your kid. It's just that's just too big of a leap.
Yeah, and there's no going back now, right? You've already opened that Pandora's box, right? There's no going back with that relationship now. Like that's what it is now, right?
On both sides, I think regardless of what race your wife or kids are, when someone talks about them, you're gonna feel a certain way that maybe you can't come back from. But then what happens is it becomes like an octopus, right? You know, you say this, he says that. There's somebody else that don't like you say, "Oh, but you got a white baby mama." Like that just came out of left field, you know. And it's like now you got another person involved. Then you got somebody else to say, "Well, talking to RG3, where you cheated on your first one."
Right. They just bringing up things that don't have nothing to do with what we actually talking about.
So you have to be so careful, as I had to learn, that one just side comment can turn into somebody who's just sitting in their basement or not happy or miserable. So what they're going to do is they're going to try to make your life as miserable, as possible. And for a lot of us who are, doing our best and have a good life, the last thing we want is our families to be pulled into some stupid social media beef that should just be about what's going on the court.
So my question to you then is, because I'm big, I always tell my viewers, like, look, social media is not a real place. Be careful, limit how much time you spend on social media because it is very toxic. So I know you had to be grinding at the very beginning and you were constantly on social media, and you probably still are to a degree. Did you find yourself having to scale it back a bit just for your sanity, for your peace?
Yeah. No, it's such a gift and a curse. And I think about it often because without it, there is no me. There's no, there's no Headline King. There's no house. Right? No, I met my wife on social media. So it was like, so then there's no kids. You know what I mean? Like I have an older kid before social media. I have 2 little ones now. So like there's positives, to it, but it's also addictive. It's also where you can get down a rabbit hole and you can't get yourself out of. It's also where you can think that you can speak freely, but you really can't because one like outward word and it can just roller coaster out. So when you say scale back, I scaled way, way back. And I was actually telling somebody this the other day is that before every little opinion that was in my head, I would put out there. It's what helped me become, popular. I had a lot of thoughts on a lot of things and a lot of interesting ways of saying it. I said, but now I have a lot of thoughts on a lot of things, but the thought of saying X and having to deal with whatever came back with it, it makes my stomach. It's like, no. It's like, let just give you an example. Like, and I'm not gonna say what I think about it, but let's say Dwayne Wade and his daughter now, who used to be his son, right? Those are the type of topics that 5-10 years ago I'd be all into it. Like, I mean, I would be head first, giving my opinion, not giving a crap what anybody said about it, and just going head first, right? Today in 2025, it may be in my head, but then also I'm like, well, it's Friday. I want to barbecue today. I want to play a little, PS5. I want to read my comic books. I want to play with my daughter, outside. If I say one line, it's gonna,
blow
maybe up. Because you have to understand who you are in this ecosystem of media. We're somebody, you know what I mean? Like we're not nobodies. And I think a lot of times I used to think of myself as just, and I still try to, I'm not trying to be like not humble or anything. It's just like, I just feel like I'm just like one, like everybody else. I don't see myself any different. So when I'm talking, I'm like, you can agree or disagree. I'm just a regular person like everybody else, but then, certain things happen throughout your career. You realize, well, that wouldn't have happened to a regular person. And it doesn't mean I'm, there's levels,
I definitely get it.
But we're at a level that's not at the bottom. Let's put it like that. So when we say something that carries weight, And I totally agree with you. I think at this point, if you can, I mean, if ideally, I would be gone. I mean, I'm talking about, I mean, I would show up. I want to be the older guy that shows up, like, you haven't heard from me in 6 months, and then I'm at the Super Bowl, talking to the coach.
Yeah.
Hey, where Rob been? He's out here with the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But the rest of the time, it just be.
You want to be Denzel Washington, basically.
Yeah.
I want to show up, do my movie. You don't see me. I'm a ghost.
Yeah.
And then when I got another movie, a new movie out, you see me, and then I'm back in my house.
I never want to give up because I still love sports. I love talking about sports. I love going to events. I love covering events. I love live events. But at this point in my life, social media is something I could totally do, without. Yeah. So if you wouldn't see me for a month, and they say, hey, that was Rob where's Rob been? And then I'll be like, hey, here I am, ringside of Canelo and Bud Crawford. That's my next step in life, to be comfortable enough to where, I pop out when a game is happening, when like when we talk about the game, or the things. That's what I like. And actually, that's kind of how I am now.
I'm telling you, you're on your way, because you keep hiring people to do your work for you, right? So they're bringing in the revenue, right?
I went to what's this? 2025, 10, 11 NBA finals in a row, and there's nothing stopping me from going down.
Right?
It's just I don't want to. I don't want to travel.
You've been to enough of them, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's younger people that I can help. Go to fights, go to NBA finals, go to Super Bowl, go to summer league, go to drafts. I've done all that. Everything that I wanted to do, besides the Stanley Cup, I want to do that before I retire. But everything that I've ever set out to do, I've done. I've been on TV. I've been on radio. I've been to everything. I've been to the biggest boxing match of all time. I've been to the biggest UFC thing. I've been to the biggest WrestleMania of all time. I've seen LeBron. I've seen the greats. I've seen LeBron. I've seen Kobe. I've seen Tom Brady. I've seen Jokic. I've seen all of this stuff with, from my, me being 25 and me getting close to 50, now, more, in this 15, 20-year time period, to the point that it doesn't bother me to let somebody else, do it. And I think we're supposed to give back and let somebody else have the spotlight. A lot of us in media don't like to do that, but that's something that I want to do.
Absolutely. Bring as many people with you as you can, man. I can appreciate that. Speaking of bringing as many people as you can with you, I want to move on to Stephen A. Smith. Give me your impressions of Stephen A. Smith, because I know there are a couple of things that I want to get to. You may get to it in just talking about him, but how do you feel about Stephen A. Smith? I bring up his name. What comes to mind for you?
Yeah, I try to explain it to people like this, is that you don't give nobody $100 million if nobody's not listening. You know what I'm saying? You don't give people multiple shows if you're not listening. You don't get 1 million subscribers on YouTube in 6 months if nobody is listening. People like to say it, and the reason that I say that is because a lot of people early on in my career said they hated BS, or they hated this. I used to get all type of names and stuff called them, but I always noticed the more hate I got, the numbers went up. The more controversial I was, the numbers went up, and I'm like, the numbers don't lie. I feel the thing about Stephen A. is I feel like sometimes he doesn't understand the type of I wouldn't say responsibility, but he's the face, he's the black face of sports media that's not an athlete. So every little thing he does and everything little thing, it carries a ton of weight throughout the industry. Who he co-signs, who he doesn't co-sign, who he brings on, who he doesn't bring on. All of that, he's the head, whether you like it or not. He's the head of Voltron, of this industry when it comes to people like us. The only thing I don't agree with them on everything. I don't disagree with them on everything. I think people say they don't like him, but nobody. I always see his clips come out. I always see people talking. I see the stories about him. The only thing that I have asked of him privately and publicly is that he gives people that wouldn't necessarily have a shot. And because, and I think I even mentioned this before, is black men in media that have not played sports are becoming extinct on the national scene. The sisters, great for them. They're blowing up. They're getting multiple opportunities. And that's amazing because they didn't get a lot of opportunities, in the past. Right. But for people like us who didn't play sports, we're getting squeezed out of the YouTube channels. We're getting squeezed out of the podcast. We're getting squeezed out of the national media conversation. Whereas white men, you can still have a Wendy, out there. You can still have, all the guys that cover the NBA.
Why is that?
Huh?
Why do you think that
because it's a couple of reasons, I think. First off, white men have a better structure in place of helping other white men.
Yeah.
So if the white man is a producer and he likes a kid, he's going to put it like this. Take Colin Cowherd, right? A guy in a position of power, right? Jason McIntyre owned a site similar to mine for many years, the big lead, right? Colin Cowherd just took him on. He just took him on, gave him opportunities, and now he hosts the herd when he's not on. I mean, no one has ever gave me that opportunity.
Yeah.
No one has said you have the exact similar site to Jason McIntyre. You guys have similar reach. You guys have similar, all the numbers are similar and everything. No black person has ever said, come on my show, my national show, and I help you out. It is sad to me. And I don't take it like I would never sell out. I would never go like Jason Whitlock or anything like that.
Right.
But it is very, very sad to me that I've worked as long as I worked and as hard as I worked. The multiple times that I've been put on national television, the multiple times I've been put on national radio, right? It's always been a white guy or white woman that's put me on. Michelle Beadle, Jason Page, the guy from TMZ. And when I first, one of the reasons I got big on the West Coast is the guys in the Bay Area, all white guys used to put me on that show every week. And I'm not even from.
I remember that.
I was in St. Louis, but they would have me out in San talking about the Warriors and stuff. I mean, I went to the first time I went to the Warriors when it was on the finals, and I went when they were playing Cleveland. And a lot of black people down there, they had me in the studio doing a full segment. These are white individuals that have helped me along with my career. I've never got any help from BET.
Yeah.
Never got any help from TV One.
Right.
Never got any help from a lot of, I won't say that I've never gotten any help, but they've never put me on a platform that could enhance my brand like these other, people. And that's something that we don't do.
Yeah. Do you see it as like a crabs in a barrel mentality?
I don't know. I remember now Stephen A. Smith, I know checks his Twitter account. And he had the Morris brothers on there talking about,
YNs, right.
And I said, listen, man.
I watched the video you put out.
I said, listen. You're covering Oklahoma City. I have a guy that's been there for 5-6 years, back when they were trash. Yeah. Well respected in the city, has a radio show. This is not even about Black Sports Online, him doing work for me. I gave him his start. But after that, he did it all on his own. Daniel Bell. Everything on his own. Well respected in the city, well respected with the players, well respected in the community, well respected within other media people that work for big companies. Got a radio show. Knows everything that you would ever want to know about all of these players. Give him 5 minutes. Just give him 5 minutes. 5 minutes 5 minutes from Stephen A. Smith having this gentleman on First Take, who's about close to 30, so in the prime of his media career, could literally change his life forever. 5 minutes. And I wasn't asking for a lot. It's a 3-hour show. 5 minutes. Ask him about Shea. Ask him about Chet. Whatever it is. The tweet got 1 million views. I know he saw it. And he was in town.
Yeah.
Didn't reach out.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, is the most, frustrating part. I have moved past that because I've done enough individually that I feel comfortable with my career. But I don't want the whole point of me starting BSO was that the people like me that came after me wouldn't have to do it. It's like this.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have to struggle, but it actually seems to be going backwards that we having less brothers, in those spaces, unless they dribble the basketball or through a football.
I really think in the case of Stephen A. Smith, I just think it's an ego thing. Right. I don't think he wants other people in his space that can threaten or challenge him because he is the king, as you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And you bringing on someone of similar intellect that may be younger, right, may cut into his share in his mind, right? This is a guy that he joked about wanting to run for president. I don't know if he's joking or not.
I don't think he's joking.
I don't think he's joking. Like you people, we laugh at this stuff. We laugh when Donald Trump talked about running for president 12 years ago, right? It's not funny now.
And I don't want to cut him off because he has helped people. Like for instance, like Kimberly Martin.
Yeah.
I've known her since she was covering the Jets locally, and I remember telling her, I think she was working at USA Today or something like that. I was like, man, they should put you on camera more. They should give you opportunities more. You're really good. Like, and he took her when she went to ESPN. He took her, put on First Take, brand new contract. He puts people on. So, and I know he's helped people behind the scenes and everything, but like you said, it's just that one little fragment. Like, why are you not putting on the brothers?
But I was about to say that's a woman though. That's not a threat to him. You know what I mean? So he doesn't see Kimberly L. Martin as a threat. I could put her on. Right. I think if you got a brother up there, that's a threat to him.
Yeah.
And his empire. This man's trying to take over. He wants to be bigger than Rogan, podcast wise.
Yeah.
Right. He just booted Michelle Beadle off of her XM radio, Sirius radio spot.
Yeah.
So like he's trying to build a monopoly, and bringing another young brother in that with similar intellect is a threat to him. That's what I believe.
Well, I won't keep pressing him on. So I mean, it's something that I feel strongly about is that we are going to become extinct because the athletes, which I think is ironic, athletes hate media until they have to become one.
Right.
You know, Draymond Green hates media, then he wants to be one. They all hate us until it's time. They realize that when they figured out, like, hey, we can do YouTube, we can do podcasts. We don't have to be good. We don't have to grind. We can just talk because people know who we are.
Right. We got stories.
Yeah, it's some of them are good. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, of course.
I think some of them are good. Yeah. Some of them are not. Okay, let's just be honest. Yeah, some of them they don't have. We have training. You know, we've worked at this. You know. And a lot of people say, well, they played ball. I've learned a long time ago, just because you play it doesn't mean you know how to articulate it.
Right.
And that's something that comes with experience. But just because they played ball, like there's no reason that Gilbert Arenas should be on ESPN. Okay. You know, he's wrong often.
More than he's right.
To a locker room. And I'm not like somebody that's like, oh, you can't make a mistake. But I'm like, if a young journalist, black guy, is grinding and working hard, working the beat and everything, and he just sees it has to be deflating, you know, because this guy can call, he can call Anthony Towns a B word and all of this stuff and curse, and then the next day I can see him on ESPN getting the most, you know, in a suit and all of this stuff. I think it just is I tell them, they ask me about journalism. I'm like, have a backup. You know. Yeah. If you want, you know, be a psychologist, be an engineer, fine. I mean, I'm serious. I'm like, it's a, or do it on your own. Like and I hate this, and this is not a knock on these kids, because any kid to me that takes the internet and becomes a multimillionaire, I salute them, especially black kids. So like I show Speed and Kai Cien and all of them. I salute them because if I was their age, I probably would do the same thing. But that's what I tell them. I'm like, you're better off if you want to get into sports media, becoming an online celebrity via TikTok, being Drewski. You know, that's your end these days. It's not knowing sports. It's being popular.
Right.
So if you can figure out a way to be popular via a stream, via a comedian, whatever it is, that's going to get you into sports more than your standard. Oh, I went to Northwestern and got a journalism degree and worked for a paper.
Yeah,
like
the days of being Michael Wilbon are over, right? And getting on.
No, you can't. Back in the day, it used to be very not simple, but it used to be straightforward. I go to college, I start at the high school level or whatever. I start at my newspaper. Maybe the newspaper has, connections to the radio. Maybe I do a little radio. Oh, the radio likes me and they got me on a segment for the TV. Oh, I do a few segments for the TV. The local TV guy likes me. I'm doing that every week for the game. Oh, the national guy sees that I'm doing. I'm thinks now they put me on the net. It used to be, steps, to it. And if you were good, you can make it. It just doesn't happen for the brothers as much. I mean, I can't think of a young brother that has went through that path lately. And it's got like if you've gotten there before, like there's a few guys from ESPN that's kind of locked in, but they don't spotlight them. They're there, they're doing work, but you don't see them getting the same love that Dan Orlovsky is getting.
Yeah. And to your point, like ESPN now has become a company that chases eyeballs. So
they stole our style.
Yeah, I mean, they went and got Pat McAfee. Why? Because Pat McAfee was killing it on YouTube. Yeah. They brought Cam Newton on ESPN. Why? Because they didn't want Cam Newton when he first retired. When Cam Newton was available for them to bring on as a personality on their show. It wasn't until Cam Newton created his platform and became big. Now they want him on first.
Yep. Same thing with Sharp. Yeah, I mean, he has his own stuff going on now, but I always say I saw it coming.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying it out like I'm not just saying it. I wrote about it a decade before.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the change. They saw because what they saw was the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they saw because I used to talk to a lot of people, still do, on the inner workings of ESPN. They saw what Deadspin was doing.
Mm-hmm.
They saw what TMZ Sports was doing. They saw what the BSO was doing. They saw what the Big Lead was doing. They saw what these kind of counter entertainment sports sites. They saw those numbers, and they saw their numbers going this way,
mm-hmm.
and they saw these independent companies going that way. And I remember at the time they had made a change to their website, and I said they're trying to be like us. And what they're going to do is they're going to start taking the stories that only we used to do.
Mm-hmm.
You used to never know about Baby Mama.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have to go to Perez Hilton, or something like that.
Right.
You had to go to like those entertainment, Nicole Bitchie, Bossip,
mm-hmm.
to find out. You had to. You never find nothing about a divorce. The fight, you never see that on ESPN. Never saw that on SI. You never ever saw that. I remember the head of SI at a time. They used to have a section called Hot Mustard. It was a small set. It started off as a small section of their site, and that section used to take links from sites like mine
mm-hmm.
and feature them because they didn't want the controversial stuff on SI.
Right.
So they would just put the links on to make people go there, and then it would come out to our sites. It was a really good way for us to get traffic. You could send them in, and they decide which ones would go on there and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that the head of SI at the time, he reached out to me, and I had sent him a story, or I don't even remember what it was. Mm-hmm. And he said, "Do you know that this story that we put on this little corner of the page on Hot Mustard got more clicks out to your site than any story that we had on SI that day?" And he said, "I'm going to tell you something, and I'm sorry." He said, "We're going to start, instead of linking out, we're going to link in. And we're going to take the same stories, but we're just going to write them ourselves." And he just wanted to tell me in advance. And maybe a month later, those same stories, they would take them and aggregate them, put a little bitty link for you on the bottom. And all of those sites that used to lost all our traffic from them because they realized that people wanted to read this. And all of a sudden, that Hot Mustard section, which was all links out, became SI links at the front top of their page. So when I see now, it's went too far because of the misinformation and everything.
Right.
But all of the stuff that we were doing back in 2010, 2011, 2014 has come to roost. And it's just taken over the way that people look. But it's went so far that now you don't even, because of the Centels and the Ball Sack Sports and all the parody accounts, you don't know what's real. You know,
you got to be careful. You got to be very, very careful.
Jamel Hill had text me and was like, "Hey Rob, I'm getting all this hate. I don't know where it's coming from." I haven't said, I've been on vacation or whatever she was at. And I said, "Oh, Stephen A. Smith is talking about you saying Angel Reese is Michael Jordan." So I never said that. So I said, "What? You never look?" I said, "Oh, this came from Facebook." I know it. Facebook just put what I told them. Facebook just put whatever quotes. They just make them up because they know people won't
substantiate them, right?
Yeah, but and people, that's another the thing where we're talking about Stephen A. You hate what you love. That the guy Dove on whatever Dove, on X. Everybody says they hate him, right? Climate, right? Yep. He's not a real person. I know he sold that account, but he's not a real person. Everybody says they hate him. Everybody says he's terrible for the outlet. All this, I hate this. And why is he on my every single post 1 million views? Every single post. Now it could be the same beat writer in Cleveland, or let's say, for instance, it could be a beat writer in Cleveland, put the same video up, 5,000 views.
Right.
He's the guy that he's the guy grinding in the heat, that's watching the practice, that's doing the interviews, is talking to the coach, is talking to Shedeur Sanders. His hard work. He's out there 8 hours a day. He puts his stuff on X. He gets 5,000 views. Dove, who for all we know, is in Malaysia, takes the video, clip it, say something stupid, 1 million views. How does that make you feel as journalists right now?
Yeah, it's a dirty business, man. I tell people all the time, if you really want to support somebody, right? Because I hear this all the time. Oh, they couldn't stand Skip Bayless, Stephen A. Smith. They created a genre, right? And I know Dan Le Batard used to always say they destroyed sports media, right? With the medium that they came out with the debate show. And I said, if you don't like it, then don't watch.
Should be that simple, right?
Right. It's as simple as that. But people can't turn away, right?
Yeah.
They cannot tell themselves, I don't want to support this, but I gotta see what Skip Bayless says. Right. He's gotta eat crow. The Cowboys lost again. I can't wait to see what he posts, right? Well, he's getting what he wants.
Oh, yeah.
It's
like I said, the numbers don't lie. I thought that was the best show they had on ESPN. The numbers don't lie. The numbers don't lie. The reason they got rid of Skip at FS1, besides all the stuff that was going on, the numbers got lower. You know, the people just stopped. Like you said, there was a time where Skip said it was a big deal, and he got old. That's all it was, and people just found new people to talk.
You don't think it was Shannon? You don't think it was because of the Shannon situation?
I think it was. I think partly. I think it was. I think just like it's almost like a football, like a team. You know, you're the older star. You need a Tim Duncan.
Yeah.
You know, and his Skip was David Robinson for a while, and but then I think the entire I think that show shifted. It was Skip and Shannon. But Shannon had such a force of personality, it became Shannon and Skip.
Right.
And Skip couldn't handle it.
No, and he thought he was the lead, right?
Yeah, and then that's what happens. And then FS1 said, he made a massive mistake after Shannon left. Because you don't want to recycle and try to recreate Shannon with Richard Sherman and Keyshawn
and all that.
You got to be radical. You're an old man. Bring somebody in new.
Yeah.
Bring somebody in young. Bring somebody in that has a different audience that we want to see. Nobody. I mean, no offense to Keyshawn or anybody, but I mean, it's just another guy, another football guy, everything's the same.
Yeah.
And I didn't agree with like Stephen A. I liked Max Kellerman, but I think he also realized that he had to shake it up a bit. Like he needed more different people to argue with, and they literally took my idea. I'll be honest with you, because I had told them years ago that a rotating people going against with Stephen at the hub would be beneficial to them, because the new people would bring in their own audience on top of Steven's audience. Now, my idea was to bring in people like us They just brought in people from ESPN.
Right.
And I got the emails from that. So it's not me just talking. The idea, and they were thinking about it, thought it was a good idea. And then 2 years later, they got rid of Max and did the idea just without me in it.
Yeah. So, and you weren't compensated for that, of course.
It was just me. I wanted myself at that time involved.
Yeah, well, your compensation could have been being on the show.
Yeah, I was like, you should have rotating independent media on the show, because they bring a totally different, audience.
So they took the idea and they tweaked it. They just said, we'll take rotating ESPN employees.
Yeah. Well, why pay us?
Right.
And then they already paying.
Right. You're already on payroll. Might as well put you up there.
Yeah, I was like, well, I guess it was a good idea. It just didn't work out the way that I wanted. But yeah, the numbers, and at a certain point, if people get tired of Stephen A, he oversaturates himself, and the numbers go down, it'll reflect that. But for now, it's just like the NBA Finals. It's like nobody likes ESPN covering the NBA Finals, and people think the ratings are down because of the people involved, which is a part of it. But I think also the presentation is like, I don't want to hear Big Perk and Stephen A yell. Like, I feel like, I don't want to see the halftime. Like, I don't like doors, whatever it may be. Their presentation is hurting the casual fan wanting to watch the product.
Okay, so I was going there next. It's perfect segue. So I wanted it because the numbers, this is the worst ratings. And I said this before on my podcast before the final started. I said, we're going to really see if fans, because you hear this all the time. I'm sick of seeing LeBron. I'm sick of seeing Steph Curry in the finals. Okay, fine. You got two teams. Neither one have ever won an NBA championship before. Someone new was going to win an NBA title. You got two small markets. Let's see if you truly gonna walk it like you talk it, right?
They lie. They lie.
They lie. They lie because this is the lowest rated finals. The first two games, lowest rated finals since 1988.
Yeah.
Okay. And we've had some stinkers, man. The Pistons Spurs finals was the worst finals ever, right?
Yeah,
last year wasn't even good, if we're being honest, right?
Yeah, it wasn't.
But in the first game was excellent.
It was great.
And this series still has a chance to be really good because of the pace of play and the way these two teams' styles kind of match up. You have a chance for some really good games. And I'm fascinated by you saying that you think some of it is partly to blame because of ESPN's presentation of the finals.
Not even a piggyback on it. The presentation, yes. But think about ESPN as a whole. What do they talk about all year? They talk about LeBron, talk about Steph Curry. They talk about they talk about the drama of the NBA. Half of the year was, LeBron and Stephen A. Smith.
Right.
How do you expect? And I actually did an article about this. Oklahoma City, they went 68-14.
Yeah, I read that one. You talked
Oh.
about them, the Celtics, the greatest teams, the Warriors, the Bulls, all the greatest teams in NBA history, and they're right up there.
Are an astronomical amount of wins. It's just, like you said, we're talking greatest teams in NBA history. But if you asked a common person who even just watches basketball casually, besides SGA, to name three guys on the Oklahoma, they wouldn't know. They wouldn't know. Heck, they put a guy in there, one guy in there. I was like, wait a minute,
who is that? Right, I did the same thing. Game one, they put a rookie in there, and I was like, who is he?
Who is he?
Who is that guy?
But I guarantee you can name 8 people on the Lakers. You can 8 people on the Clippers. It's part of the presentation is who, and I think that's where the NFL is so much better. If it doesn't really matter where you play, if you ball, even though, like I say, it's maybe Cowboy centric, but if you ball, Patrick Mahomes is in Kansas City, Lamar Jackson is in Baltimore, Josh Allen's in Buffalo. If you ball, people are going to know who you are, and they don't really care who you play for. They care that you are a ball. You Saquon Barkley or whatever it may be. You don't have to be in New York. You don't have to be in L.A. I would say there's less people that know who on the Chargers than the Chiefs. And so basketball, for whatever reason, and maybe this changes after LeBron and Steph retires. It's almost like LeBron has stayed too long, and it hasn't allowed other players to blossom in this. You know, Jokic had an issue, you know, with this, and he doesn't even get into the social media and stuff.
Right.
So it's not just a presentation; it's you can't do an entire basketball year where you essentially just talk about a couple of teams and a couple of players, and then have people even care that it's a good series with good players. They just don't care. Like, why would I care about Oklahoma City? I don't know nothing about them.
Yeah.
Why would I care about the Pacers? I don't know.
You make a great point, because that was one of the topics I think they were talking about during the year, like that there's so much good going on in the NBA, but yet they always seem to gravitate towards LeBron and Steph and, you know, those type of conversations instead of highlighting, like you said, Oklahoma City Thunder and what they were doing and the greatness that they've displayed this year. So I want to ask you this: if inside the NBA, so if TNT was doing the finals, do you think the ratings would be higher?
Yeah, I do. I think it'd be a tick higher, because people. And here's you can't. I always talk about organic, right? Like some things you will try to force, and something like I always say, Caitlin Clark is organic in the sense that she doesn't look like Cameron Brink, right?
Right.
You know, she's not like 6'8". You know, she looks like your normal white girl that you would see at Target.
Yeah.
So the popularity is not being siphoned for any other reason besides she bought a little Steph Curry-ish. You know,
that's like, exactly what it is. That's the parallel.
It's just strictly ball. You know, whereas, you know, you take Angel Reese, you know, obviously there's a siphon of popularity that comes from some of the other things that she does off the court, which is absolutely perfectly fine, because men do that all the time.
Take advantage of your stardom.
Yeah. Inside the NBA, it's just something organic that because they don't necessarily watch a lot of basketball themselves.
No, they don't. Especially Chuck. Chuck don't. The games they play, who he played for and stuff, like Chuck don't ever know when those guys play it.
But it's just organically, people just gravitate to their thing better. And there's nothing that ESPN can do or put together that can deal with that. And I think there's a little blowback from the people that's like, I seen Stephen A. Smith all morning. I seen him on his YouTube channel. I seen him. I don't want to see him at 6 o'clock at night. You know, it's like there is a limit at a certain point. You know, there's things with Malika Andrews that people have issues with. Obviously, there's things with Doris Burke. It seems like they have issues.
Oh my God, they killing Doris this year. I'm like, what did Doris do?
I'm like, yeah, it's like sometimes you just. I don't think Doris has done anything.
I don't think she's done anything wrong.
I think she's just caught up in that ESPN.
Wrong place, wrong time. It's for
exactly. She's caught up in this ESPN thing of like, we just don't like you. You know, we just don't like what you do. And I think that does hurt, you know, ratings. And I do think if it was, I think next year, like the worst thing that happened was the NBA said, "Oh no, ESPN can have it for another 11 years." Yeah, they should have like the NFL, they should have switched it off. Like they should have been like NBC, you get a shot at it. So you can see. I don't think one network should always have the end the championship game, because they get lazy. I mean, what do they have? What incentive do they have to be better when they already got it locked in for 11 years?
Yeah, for the next decade. Are they gonna? Is ESPN going to mess up inside the NBA? Do you think?
Oh yeah, probably. Because the only way that would work, in my mind, is if they just left them be. Like it felt like they just switched off from ESPN and just let them go. But you know they can't do that.
Yeah, they're not gonna do that.
Like there's so many. Like I'm curious, because like I like Scott Van Pelt. I like what SVP does at the end of games and all of that stuff. I think but their system now, how they do, like how does that work? Like if the game is over, is it like ESPN has Scott Van Pelt, ABC has Inside the NBA? Like it's too, like it's not uniform. Like if you watch the game on TNT, the game was over, Chuck and them came on. And like you didn't have to change the channel, you didn't have to find where you. Anytime someone has to change, you're gonna lose an audience.
Yep.
Like if I gotta look for it, that happened to me the other day. Like I was on ABC and I was waiting for a post game show, and the news came on.
Yeah.
And I was like,
I ain't watching it.
I
Yeah.
got other stuff to do
What to
today.
do, right.
I didn't even think about it.
Right.
So unless they just how you pay Stephen A. Smith $100 million,
They're gonna get their
and
money
he's
back.
primarily a basketball guy.
Mhm.
Are you telling me that when the game is over or in the halftime and the beginning of the game, he's just not going to be there? Because as soon as you put him there or you add something in, it's not the same.
Mhm.
So, and I think even Shaq said it when he was like, "Can we still say big women of San Antonio?
Right.
Can we still curse? It's
Right.
ABC,
It's Disney. It's Disney. Right.
It's Disney. Like, are they going to come in and be like, "Oh yeah, it's your show," but and at that point, it's like, and Charles don't even say he would be there.
Yeah.
He's like, he's like, he feels like he did it to save their job, so to speak.
Yeah. Because if it was no Chuck, there was no inside.
Right. It just seems like he's checked out.
He didn't want to be. He said he was done. Because he didn't want to leave TNT. He was like, I want to work for Turner. If it's not here, then I don't want to do it.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of money involved, and that's why I understand that. But it's like they always say it's going to be the same. But like even Pat McAfee to an extent, yeah, a lot of it's the same, but not all of it. He's had his issue. Like he has to that first hour or whatever it is on ESPN, that's really toned down.
Oh, of course.
He only can have Rodgers on in the back half now. It's like he has a 3-hour show, but half of it is sanitized, and then you get the real show on the back end. And so I'm like, great, you're getting paid for really doing 2 hours of your show and 1 hour of BS.
Yeah.
But that I just don't see how you go to ESPN and it be exactly the same. And I think I just think the NBA messed up. They should have let NBC, let Amazon have a crack at it because it's fresh and people would want to, kind of, if it's new, I think a lot of people would like if NBA Finals say was on Amazon or was on NBC for the first time with the old NBC music and the intros and I think it gets better ratings.
Yeah. And I mean, they bring in Round Ball Rock back next year, and then I don't know what Jordan is supposed to be doing, like how he's contributing. I'm anxious to see what that looks like, but they've got my attention. I want to see what it's going to look like when NBC takes over next year. But switching gears, I'm a massive boxing fan, and I know you are as well. I've heard stories. I've never been, so I want to get your opinion because I've heard this from people who have. The thing that they've told me, because I was dying to go to Crawford Canelo in September, and I was trying to get some buddies, and we saw the ticket prices, and my buddy was like, I don't know about that, boss. So is the hype surrounding a big weekend in Vegas with a massive fight, is that weekend worth the price of admission? Because I've heard that there's nothing better than a big fight weekend in Vegas.
There was a time, clearly, and I'm sure there was a time before, we were, young adults, those Sugar Ray Leonard and Hagler and Hearn. There were times, I think, and obviously if you go even further back to the Ali days where boxing, I mean, it was big time.
Yeah, it was king.
In our era, which I would say kind of, at least for me, kind of spans from the Mike Tyson era to kind of now. When I was old enough to cover boxing, I would say my era would be the Mayweather Pacquiao era of boxing. Yeah, it was a weekend. Let's put it like that. It was when Mayweather fought, when Pacquiao fought. This is kind of the era of the welterweights, the middleweights. Canelo fought. Even if it wasn't those three, you could go on a weekend and there was so much to do. There were so many people there. It had a vibe that was different. Lately, that vibe has, I would say, post Mayweather, post Pacquiao, it has not quite been the same.
Right.
Maybe because we don't have those crossover American stars that we had.
Right.
And even like someone like Pacquiao was big in America.
Right.
And Canelo had it, but you know, he's getting older.
Yeah.
He still has that Mexican fan base, but
Yeah.
you don't hear it like it used to be. Like, hey man, it's Mayweather fight. We got to start saving up.
Yeah.
Like, you know, he was fighting in May and September. You start saving in January. You know, we're gonna get the room, we're gonna get the models, we're gonna get the things. You know, it's not the same, I would say, anymore. I think boxing is taking a downward turn. I think UFC is kind of usurped them with those type of weekends and stuff. Unfortunately for the UFC weekends, they're mostly MAGA. So it's not really for the brothers.
Right,
so,
right.
you know,
I can't get into UFC, man, as much as I want to. I can't.
Yeah,
I'm a boxing guy.
Yeah.
And
you
my
know,
problem with boxing is you don't get the matchups anymore.
correct.
Guys don't want to fight the fighters that we want to see them fight because of fearing of losing, right?
The big guys, yeah. The I would say the overseas is doing great.
Yeah.
Because the UK guys fighting guys. You know, you know, the B Vols and the better Vs, they fight each other. The anyways, they fight. Yeah. So I think it's healthy overseas because you'll get the heavyweights, you'll get Dubois and all these guys fighting each other. In the States, we have an issue. We have an issue with our guys fighting each other. Now, every once in a while, we will get then the problem is our guys will fight each other, then it's just controversy, like, you know, the Ryan Garcia and Haney fight, for instance. It just can't just be a good fight. It has to be a lot of other stuff. Americans fighters do more tweeting, more streaming, more videos than fighting. You know, and they don't fight often, even though they're young. One of the big things when I was growing up is a young fighter that was like, say, Shakur Stevenson or Devin Haney, Ryan Garth. Those guys used to fight 4 times a year. You see them 3 times on HBO and then a pay-per-view maybe. You would see them a lot. So they became bigger stars. And they were not fighting cupcakes. You know, Oscar De La Hoya used to fight all the time.
All the time. Miguel Cotto used to fight.
Miguel Cotto all the time.
All the time.
Judah. You know, Young Floyd. Those guys used to fight all the time. And they were accessible to you because everything wasn't on pay-per-view. And you knew if Bernard Hopkins or they were fighting, you know, I think Roy fought on HBO more than anybody else. Just regular HBO. So now everything is pay-per-view or now streaming, whatever it is. But to answer your question, one of the things when it comes to boxing and tickets, don't jump, especially if they're going to do it at the Allegiant Stadium. A lot of times they try to screw you early in the ticket process. But if you just wait it out, if you go down there and get a nice hotel or whatever, wait till the day before, even the day of, now that everything is kind of digital, you'll find something reasonable. And I will still say this: there's nothing in sports that feels like a big fight night. And there's nothing that has a bigger reaction with the crowd than a knockout. Because unlike any other sport, it happens quickly. Like you can watch football and say, "Oh man, he's backing up. He's going to throw it deep." Like you can see a little bit before it happens. Basketball, oh, he's on the fast break. He's gonna, be a dunk. Baseball, oh, here's the pitch. It looks like it's down the middle. Like, it's exciting, but you see it happening. You know, boxers don't like that.
Spontaneous.
I saw a fight last weekend. The guy was losing every round. Boom. Just bam. And the crowd reaction to that is like nothing. And I've been to pretty much any other sport that there is. There's no other crowd reaction than fighting sports, because it's the only sport really that you can be losing every single minute of every single round to the last second and still win. And so there's nothing that kind of, compares to that.
And it's on the opposite side, it's the only sport where you can win perceivably every round and still lose the fight, depending on the judges. It was a fight. So I just recently went to a fight in my city, man. And you might have heard about it. Keyshawn Davis. It was on top. It was on Top Rank. So they came to Norfolk. This was the second time in less than a year. They were here in November, and it was great. So they came back and did it again last weekend, and it was a mess, right? Because Keyshawn didn't make weight. I don't know if you heard about this. He didn't make weight. He was supposed to be defending his title. He's been a lightweight for 4 years. And so he was like, this was going to be his last fight as a lightweight. He was going to move up to junior welterweight anyway after this fight. And so he didn't make weight by 4 pounds. He could have lost the weight. I think he just was at the point where he was like, I don't care. So he doesn't try and lose the weight. So Delos Santos is like, I'm not fighting him. And so there's a guy that I think is the new face. It's going to be the new face of boxing. His name is Abdullah Mason. Right?
Abdullah Mason, yeah.
He's a beast. And so he was on the card, and he was on the card the first time. So they just bumped him up to the headliner. So anyway, Keyshawn Davis has 2 brothers. They both box as well. Keon Davis, and that's the second oldest. And then Keyshawn's the youngest. Keon's the second oldest. And then Kelvin is the oldest. Kelvin's been a professional the longest. So Keyshawn put his brothers on the card every time he fights. So we saw Keon's first professional fight in November. Now he's 4-0. That was his first fight. He knocked the dude out. It was dramatic. He's at home, right in front of the home crowd. It was dope. Kelvin, I was not impressed the first time I saw him fight. But he won. To me, he was too timid. This guy he's a welterweight. He's 6'4" with a 74-inch reach. But he refuses to use his jab. He refuses to keep guys off of him and at a distance and fight out, from behind his jab. And so he was fighting a guy. So he won that first fight in the 9th round, 10th round in the knockout, but it was not impressive.
Right.
So this time he loses the fight to a guy that is, a lot shorter reach, all of that. He's just getting inside, bullying him, turning it into a brawl, right? A ballroom brawl. And he just mucked the fight up, was really getting inside and tearing him up. And he lost the fight, his first professional fight at home, right?
Yeah.
So his brothers took exception to it and ended up going into his locker room and confronting him because in the scope, the locker room of the fighters are right next to each other.
Yeah.
So they heard them celebrating in the adjacent locker room. So they go over and confront him, altercation happens. He ends up with a knot on his forehead that he did not have after the fight. So Mark Kriegel goes and interviews him because again, it's on ESPN, right? So he goes and interviews him, and he's like telling him the fighter is telling him, yeah, they came and confronted me and they jumped me. The 2 younger brothers jumped me in the locker room because he asked him, where'd you get that knot from? You didn't have that knot before. So it's a mess. ESPN is killing him, calling him unprofessional. Timothy Bradley's like, I'm no longer a fan of his. And I said, they're never coming back to Norfolk now. We're gonna mess it up. You know what I mean? So I was so disappointed in that. And you see that kind of stuff in boxing. And that's another problem with boxing. It's just a crazy sport and these promoters get involved. And
I always tell people and that's funny because I have a friend that started in boxing and then he crossed over to cover football, NFL, and he was shocked because just of the way that the NFL handles things, as opposed to like boxing, which is kind of the wild west.
Yeah,
and I'm like, yeah, it's a different breed of sport, but it's also you can't have that happen. It's just people are looking at us and it's like the sport is already kind of hinging on the fringe. We can't have our young stars, especially our young Black stars, act like this because why would anybody want to, watch them? So it's something that's troubling, to me. But I think the thing is, it's part of the social media world that these new boxers have grown up in. Back in the day, there was, you just was trying to get out of poverty. You couldn't run the social media and make an issue out of everything. You had to fight.
Yeah. Right.
And fight for real.
Right.
Now these guys, they on Instagram, they want to, be at the parties. They,
Mhm.
Ryan Garcia, who I think has talent, but how is someone that has talent like him really motivated to become a real boxer when he's 17, 18 years old with 5 million followers on Instagram,
Mhm.
and he's already famous
Right.
without having to prove that he has any skill? That's something that I think is a problem for all of them.
You're not wrong. It's a lot of that going on. It's a lot of trash talk on social media. I'm like, let's get in the ring. Like, why are we doing all this on social media? Like, this is what fans want to see. They want to see y'all fight. And it's too much of that, too much of this, and not enough of this. You know what I mean? In the sport. And it's really frustrating. All right. So one more thing before I get you out of here, man. I appreciate you for the time. Man, the NFL is king, and that's my favorite sport. It's what I love to talk about. And last year was was a historic draft, right? A 2024 draft I'm referring to, in terms of the amount of offensive players selected to start a draft, and then 6 quarterbacks going in the first round, which had never happened before in NFL history. And so of those 6 quarterbacks that were drafted in the first 12 picks, again, another record in the NFL, 4 of them started, I believe, week 1. Let's see. Drake May started week 1. Jaden Daniels started week 1. Caleb Williams started week 1. And McCarthy obviously didn't play last year. Penix didn't play until late in the season. I'm forgetting one. Bo Nix started week 1. So 4 started week 1. And then Michael Penix got his start later in the season, like week 14. 15 was his first start. What did you see from those young quarterbacks last year, and who impressed you the most of that group?
Well, like I said, I was bullish on Bo Nix.
Okay.
I didn't think he was like the top quarterback, but I felt like his style of play fit in to the NFL style of play, which is really the first 10 yards. You have to be accurate within those first 10 yards. You have to get the ball out quick and everything. So I wasn't surprised that he played well. I will say Drake May was put in a terrible situation. I don't, Dan Marino couldn't have made that Patriots team decent.
Yeah, that was bad.
But I thought he handled it very well, and I thought he played as best as he could considering the circumstances. A lot of people had a lot of bad things to say about Caleb Williams, but I always felt that when you put a young quarterback in an unstable coaching and general manager position, he's going to fail. He's going to fail because the coach is thinking about saving his job, not helping a rookie quarterback at that time. So I felt like in the back half of the year, once they kind of got rid of the guy, he played better. But he has the most, even over Jaden Daniels, I think he has the most unique quarterback skills that I've seen out of a prospect in many, many, many years. He can just make certain throws and do certain things that you just don't see. Now you have to cultivate that within the realm of running an actual offense, running an actual system. But I think this year with the guy from the Lions now taking over as head coach, I think he's going to have a big breakout year. I think Jaden Daniels has to be kind of wary of kind of the same thing that happened with CJ Stroud last year. The expectations are through the roof. And people are very high on you now. People that also have a year of tape on you now. It only gets harder. You know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of people have a great rookie year or a very good rookie year, and you just assume it's going to be like that every year. It's not. Playing quarterback in the NFL is difficult, and these defensive coordinators are very apt at making changes to try to slow you down. So I'm interested to see what type of second year that he has. But clearly, and I say this all the time, when it comes to quarterbacks, of course, you have to have some physical talent. I think, but I think they all have physical talent. It's just one of those things. It's one of those positions or you have to have it.
Mhm.
And that can't be defined.
Mhm.
Like if you have it and you have the physical, you turn into Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, or whatever it may be. You can have as much physical talent as you want. If you don't have it, it's never gonna like say someone like Derek Carr, solid, right? I guess, but he never had it, and you knew he didn't have it, and he never was gonna have it. I don't think Kirk Cousins has it.
Right.
He has, I'm okay enough for you to be all right, but you're not gonna have it. I think all of these guys, and we have to see with JJ McCarthy because he's so young and he didn't really have a lot of experience
Mhm.
at Michigan.
Right.
They've shown at least flashes of having it. Now that you've shown the flashes, can the mental and the physical all come together? And now you can take your team to the next level. Because once you've shown that you have that ability, like Jaden Daniels has, I've shown you I can get to a NFC championship game. Well, it's only up from there. Ask Lamar Jackson. When you show like your MVP, there's no success in just getting to the playoffs now.
Right.
There's no success in winning that play. You got to win. You got to get to the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of pressure for a young guy. But once you have shown that you're not just some guys, you're like, hey, if they get us to the playoffs, man, I'm so happy. Like I feel like Bo Nix is kind of like that. Like if Bo Nix got won a playoff game or two, I think the Broncos fans would be like, man, that's great, that's awesome. But Jaden Daniels has shown more.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey man, we want to win the Super Bowl. We already been to the conference championship.
Right.
And it's the same. It's the Lamar Jackson conundrum. It's like you're the MVP twice, probably should have been 3 times. Mm-hmm. You're at times the best quarterback in the NFL, the most dangerous quarterback in the NFL. Your ceiling is LeBron's ceiling. It's like it's championship or a bust. Mm-hmm. So these young quarterbacks, now that they've shown that they got a little something, now that pressure is going to be on to take it, to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, as a Commanders fan, it's interesting because I don't know. Like, we expect to win. I still don't know what defines a good season for us now that we went to the NFC Championship game. It feels like, because obviously there's so many fans outside of our fan base that want to see Jaden Daniels take a step back because
of course
there's so much hype surrounding him now because of what he did in his rookie season. Mm-hmm. But he's so good. He's so poised. I think he's different than CJ Stroud because of his athleticism, and he brings different attributes and skill sets to the table that I don't think CJ Stroud necessarily brings.
He's a different type of quarterback, but like you said, it's the poise and the command and the I know how to win. I'm a winner, I think that, people like, you take someone like Tom Brady or Peyton Manning who weren't, very athletic. Yeah. And it's like what differentiated them. It's just there was some sort of this desire. It's just something else. Like it's really hard to define, but he has it, and when you got somebody that has it, and when you got somebody that they may not. Now, sometimes you can develop it because Josh Allen early didn't have it.
I always believed in Josh Allen.
He had all physical and no nothing else.
Yeah.
But whatever they did, I don't know what they did in Buffalo, he found it. Point blank, Patrick Mahomes, they sat him that 1 year.
Yeah.
But after that, when he came, he just had it. And I don't know if it's a coaching, it's the players, a combination of everything.
Yeah.
But when you see it, you know it. And I think, I think that jury's out on a few, like, Penix and stuff. You don't really, they didn't have enough. Right. But you saw it with Lamar. You saw it with certain guys. It's like, this is one of them. Jalen Hurts is one of them. It's like, even though he gets a kind of a bad rap at times, when push come to shove, when he's in the game, they win. Yeah. He's not hurt. They win.
Yeah. And he plays well. I think he's one of those dudes that has grown out throughout his career. He's gotten better. You know what I mean? Like, because when he first came in the league, he wasn't like that.
No, he had the mentality, but everything else has to catch up.
Yeah.
So you want to, it's much better, I think, to have the mentality, the it factor, and then have like Lamar Jackson wasn't like he was. He had it, but then he had to learn how to be a quarterback.
Right.
Somebody like Dak Prescott, I think is always going to be Dak Prescott.
He doesn't have it. He doesn't have it.
Tony Romo. I mean, Tony Romo was Tony Romo. And I think Dak Prescott is Dak Prescott. It's like the numbers are going to look good. But in the end, it just
he doesn't have it. He, like you said, you can't define it, but whatever it is, he doesn't have it. Right. So, man, I can't thank you enough for the time, man. This was great. It was everything I thought it would be, and then some. So do me a favor before you get out of here. Tell the people where they can find all of your work. You're everywhere. Tell them where they can find all of your work.
Yeah, you can still find me, on Twitter or X at BSO if you really want to, talk to me about ball and things like that. But then, everything flows off blacksportsonline.com, the Facebook, Instagram. We do the TikToks, we do the live streams from time to time as well. So I'm always accessible. I'm always here to help if someone has to help. If you have a show, you want to talk about things and things like that. I want media to be better. I want us to have more representation. I want a little less hot takes and a little more ball takes. And I'm not against, talking about things outside, of sports and everything, but, let's do it in a way that it's fun. We're not tearing each other down. We got to have each other's back. And I think that's a societal thing, not just a sports media thing. So I'm always here, at this point in my career, I'm willing to help anyone that needs a little help or a little push or advice or whatever it may be. If you need to contact me, the contact information is on the website. You can email me. I always respond. That's a special email address just for people that want to talk to me or have questions or anything. And I always answer those emails.
Man, before I let you go, one final question. Does Diddy get off?
Yes, I do. I think he gets off.
Yeah.
I think not. I'm not saying I'm with Diddy and with all of that.
I saw your video about the jury selection, and
it's just the jury. I've heard that the jury is kind of like, this guy's a freak and not. But I don't think they are looking at these women that they're bringing up there as victims of what he's being accused of. Maybe victims of having bad boyfriends, victims of. But I think they see the money that Diddy has put out to these ladies, and they're not seeing quite the coercion. Basically, it's a federal case that's trying to make it seem like a criminal enterprise, but his enterprise is Bad Boy Records and Sean John, and all of this other stuff that he's doing really has no connection, to that. And I think as a juror, you're like, yeah, this is bad and domestic abuse and sex workers and all of that stuff. But this is not Tony Montana. This is not John Gotti. This is a guy that had $1 billion and that does freaky these. And maybe there's no children, like there's no underage people involved. These are grown, women. When you look at Diddy's baby mama, she was like 40 years old. Like, these are like women that of age that can make their own, decisions. And I think from a legal perspective, maybe he gets hit with some of the lighter charges, but I find it hard to believe they're gonna hit him with like the R. Kelly or anything like that. He's gonna be in. I think it's a totally different, type of case. But that's another discussion. So that's one of them discussions I don't want to talk about on social media. I didn't even really want to make that video, to be honest. I kind of slid it in there and just kind of walked away. I want to be involved.
I love it, man. I thank you so much for your time. This was great, man. I have to come back. I have to bring you back on at a later date and time. And so many more things to discuss, man. But really appreciate your time, man. Take care of yourself.
Anytime.
Appreciate it.
Louie T Network.